Hi, welcome back to the channel. I'm Michelle, and today I'm going to be sharing my end of the year review for my 5-year-old son. So he started the year by finishing up pre-K, and then about January he switched into kindergarten level work. So he's my third child. This is my third time going through this level. And I have to say that, I'm used to all the things, the resources I've used so far, but with each child comes each unique strengths and weaknesses and adjusting to those needs. So although this is my third time doing it, I definitely learned some things along the way with my child. So first I'm going to talk about what he started with. So for math, he started the year finishing up mathematical reasoning. I'll put a picture up here for you just because since he is my third child, I have no reason to keep things to pass on to another child. So when he's finished with something, which is really nice, I can get rid of it and throw it out. And that's exactly what I did with mathematical reasoning. He did the entire book, it went really well, but I threw it in the recycling as soon as he was done. So he finished that, and in January he moved over to Math with Confidence. This is something I have used with my middle child as well. She started kindergarten Math with Confidence and moved on to Dimensions. We will see what I plan to do with my son. I think this works really well for him. I do get the questions a lot with my middle child. If this worked well for her, why did I move her to Dimensions? Because math comes very naturally to that specific child, and Math with Confidence was just too easy and not challenging her enough. I don't know if that will be the case with my 5-year-old son, but we will see. We are exactly halfway through, or no, a little past halfway through Math with Confidence, and just like my 8-year-old, when she did it, it's going really well. He really likes the games, he really likes the hands-on component. It's quick, it's easy. So we will continue that into the summer and probably finish it off for next year as well. Next, for handwriting, he started the year doing Handwriting Without Tears, and it was my first school book, uppercase and lowercase letters. Finished those, again, got rid of those when he was done. He's currently working and almost completely done with Kickstart to Kindergarten, and I will just keep moving him on as the levels go on. I think this is a great curriculum for handwriting. It's worked for all my kids, so I will continue with that. Now, phonics instruction. So he was doing Funtime Phonics, and we supplemented some with reading reflex because he got his letter sounds down, and we were transitioning into all about reading, but I noticed that he was having trouble with isolating certain phonetic sounds, and it was a difficult thing for him in a way that wasn't difficult for my other two children, so I kind of had to do some adjustment, some research to kind of figure out what his specific issue he was having with it. So we brought in Funtime Phonics, and I also use Reading Reflex. Again, I'll show a picture of that because it's a book I borrowed from a friend, don't currently have it. But using those resources really helped me isolate the issues he was having and how to adjust to help him get those phonetic sounds down. So once he got that done, so we only made it probably a quarter of a way through Funtime Phonics, and this is aimed at 4 to grade 2, so it's a supplemental resource. I would not consider it a full-fledged learning how to read or anything like that. It's a supplemental resource. So once he got enough practice and I utilized some of the things I learned that would help him with isolating certain phonetic sounds that he was struggling with, we moved on to All About Reading. Again, all 3 of my kids have used All About Reading. My middle child my oldest only used the first level, and then she transitioned into public school. My middle child is currently using level 4, and now my last child is, let's see, we are on lesson 11. And the thing about All About Reading level 1, which I have to often remind myself, is you spend a lot of time in it, at least in my experience with my kids, through level 1. The other levels go a lot quicker, but you have a situation with a 5-year-old, 4-year-old, it's going to take multiple days to get through a lesson. That's just normal. Don't expect to do a lesson every day, but he's really liking it so far. He actually really likes the cards, and I think some of that is just because he's seen his sister do them for years at this point, because she's done the All About Reading level, that he's excited to do it himself, but he's always excited to do the cards. And it was really surprising that once we did some of that supplemental work with isolating sounds, he did really, really well with this and caught on really quick. So once I was able to kind of isolate what the problem was and what I could do to help him, it really did give him that little bit of push. Because he was hesitant at first, same with the reader. He was hesitant when we first picked up the reader because, much like my oldest, he assumes it's going to be hard, and unlike my oldest, who doesn't want to do something if she assumes it's hard because she fears failure, he doesn't want to do something because he knows it'll be more work. And that is something we've had to adjust to, that he is definitely my third child. He's my most stubborn. But I'm also really well seasoned and experienced when it comes to teaching reading at this point, and also the preschool, kindergarten age level. I'm just used to it at this point, that I know when to push, I know when to pull back, and that just comes with experience, honestly, and knowing this particular child and what works best for him. But, you know, coaxing him that, okay, giving him some choice in it. We decided that he'd only read 2 pages when he first started the book, the readers, and he was fine with that. And then he realized, oh, it's not in fact as hard as he thought it was. And then we would start reading more than the 2 pages per little reader chapter. So he's done really well. He does not, you know, fear the reader. When we first started, he did. The instructions going really well with All About Reading. Again, I think it's a great program, works for multiple, you know, like each of my kids has been completely different, but it is one of those curriculum that has worked for each one of my kids. So we will continue on with that and continue on the lessons. I think he's progressing really well. You know, I have to say that when we started this year, reading was something I was hesitant with him, and not because I didn't think he could do it or anything. He was definitely ready. He was probably ready before I thought he was ready. But having such different experiences with my older 2 kids, and I do think this is something important to talk about, that when you're schooling multiple ages of kids, that you kind of have these standards in your head of where kids should be at certain levels, and you can't really compare one of your kids to the other. And I think unconsciously we have different experiences with each kid, and especially if we don't have a lot of teaching or, you know, experience in the classroom, we don't necessarily know where that level should be. And with my oldest, she set the bar so high because reading came so naturally to her, and she flew off reading. With my middle child, it was a struggle. It took us multiple years. So when I was, you know, coming into reading with my third child, I was like, okay, which one is it going to be? Is it going to be an easier path, or is it going to, am I setting myself up for years of getting ready to learn to read? And it's not like one is better than the other. It's nothing like that. It's just mentally preparing myself, knowing that this could be, you know, years-long journey. And it's, now that we've gotten into it, I'm not hesitant or concerned about it as more. I think he will do completely fine, and he will go exactly at his own pace like I knew he would. But a little bit of me was just like, oh, we're gonna be doing like level 1 for years. I don't predict we'll be doing it 4 years. I do think we will be doing it this year and into his kindergarten level. But I do think it's important to point out that kind of hesitancy based on our experience in a subject with a previous child, how that kind of, what that mentally does for us preparing to teach another child. And the same thing with math. You know, my oldest struggled in math, and my middle child excels in math. So I had the opposite, where I was really hesitant in math with my middle child, but she just flew and took off with it. So I do think it's important to mention how we get those feelings and hesitancy in certain subject areas, or even sometimes curriculum, because we've had past experience with it, but to remind ourselves that this is a different child in a different situation. It will not be the same experience. So also to supplement phonics and help with that isolation, we got a get set for the code. He's done A and he's done B. He's more than halfway done with C. Again, he really likes this. I did get ready for the code, I think with my middle child, if I remember correctly. And it really helped her. So he's really been enjoying it. I do enjoy that it has handwriting practice as well as phonetic practice. He has fun with it. We will continue with this. He'll get, so this is get set for the code. Next we'll be doing the code series. Another thing he's been working on this year is writing his name. So he has mastered his first and last name, being able to write it, and it was really exciting for him because at our local library, once you can print your name, you get your own special library card, a kid library card. And you know, everyone in my family has library cards, and he worked really hard to learn his name, and he practiced it every day, and he was super excited when he finally got that library card, and now he can check books out under his card instead of Mom's. And it was the point where this is the notebook he uses to write his name. I'm not going to show you the inside because it would share his name, which I don't share my kids' names or faces on my channel, if you're unaware. But that's why I'm not opening it. But he would take this with him and show people how well he's been doing, learning his name and writing his name. And he was just really proud of himself. And I think that's really important to give them opportunities to feel pride, to know that they're doing a good job, and to be excited about that. So that is something he has mastered, and he will continue to practice his name, as well as, do other handwriting things. So the only other thing we did was core knowledge. So he started the year finishing up the preschool unit that we had started the previous year. And then he is about halfway through the kindergarten unit, and we're about to break and switch into summer curriculum, which I will link up above, our schedule for summer and my plans for that. We do year-round homeschool, but it's a little lighter in the summer. And I decided not to, unless he requests, not to include core knowledge, kindergarten listening and learning strand, just because I don't want him to get too far ahead. That's kind of a situation I'm having with my middle child. She is 8 years old, and she did the 3rd grade language arts for core knowledge this year, but she's not ready to do 4th grade next year. It switches between 3rd and 4th grade. There's a big switch, and it's not directed towards, it's not the teacher kind of reading stories anymore. It takes a switch that she's quite not ready for. And I don't want him to have that issue as well. So with him, I'm going to pause for summer, and then we will start those units again come fall. And again, great curriculum, probably his favorite thing we've done all year. So I'm actually going to take my computer and show you what units we have covered with core knowledge, language arts, and we do the listening and learning strand, because there are 2 sections. There's a listening and learning strand, and there is a skills section. Listening and learning is, contextual knowledge. You're getting the information, you're getting vocabulary, setting pieces of story elements, things like that. The skills is more like handwriting, writing instruction, things like that. Phonetics, I don't need the skills section because, as you can see, I already have other areas that I use different curriculum for. So I don't have anything against the skills section. I think it's a wonderful program. You could do both if you want. I just have other resources from previous kids that I've used that I have on hand. That's the only reason I don't do the skills section. But I would take it to my computer and show you what units we have done using core knowledge this year for him. Now again, core knowledge is completely free online. I have various videos on my channel talking about how I use it, reviews, if you want to check them out. So for preschool, we're finishing up the second half of preschool. So we had habitats, classic tales, important people through history, and then we went into kindergarten level work. So from January on, so what we've covered so far is nursery rhymes and fables. He really enjoyed that. Stories, the 5 senses, so we got into human body. And again, what I really love about core knowledge is that you're getting multiple different units. You're covering science, you're covering history, you're covering language arts and stories. You're covering all these things within the language arts curriculum, which is great because all these things are aimed at his level, that although he does join us in group subjects for history and science, most of that is way above his head, but everything in here is exactly at age level for him. So he's getting exposure to, like I said, science and history through these units that are aimed specifically at his age level. We did plants again, and again, you will see units repeat themselves in some way. There's a human body unit in every single core knowledge science unit and language arts unit. So you will see them, but it's not the same information. You're going deeper each time because obviously the point of core knowledge is to build upon itself. Core knowledge means building on. So each year you're getting a little bit more. So although he did plants in his preschool unit, we did more in-depth for kindergarten. We did farms. He really enjoyed that. He's obsessed with farm equipment. And it was great because some of it actually explained what the different farm equipment was and how it was used, because he often will ask me those questions. And I have to be honest, I didn't know the answers to all the different types of farm equipment there are. so he really enjoyed that. And when we did plants, he really enjoyed the play acting in it, so we learned about pollinators, and he got to act out being a pollinator, so we got, you know, a big blanket and some cushions that represented flowers, and he got to be the bee and go from flower to flower pollinating. So it's a lot of hands-on stuff. I think people assume because it's meant for a public or private school setting that it's very dry. And if you look at the teacher guides, I can see how it could be overwhelming or it can be off-putting because it's a lot of information. But really, like I keep saying about core knowledge, if you get in there, look it over, read, take what you need from it, it's a wonderful curriculum. And he has, like I said, enjoyed this the most this entire year, or the units we've done in here. So we ended with Native Americans, and then we stopped for the year. So going into next year, we'll do Kings and Queens, Seasons and Weather, Columbus and Pilgrims. And again, I think Core Knowledge does a good job trying to present history subjects from different perspectives. Is it the best out there? No, I think with any history curriculum you're going to have to supplement, and same thing with Native Americans, which we talked about in a previous unit. I supplemented that as well. We do a Native American History Month every November, where all my kids participate and we learn about Native American culture. So this is not their only resource and exposure to this information, and if I see something that's a red flag or something I don't agree with, I supplement that material with something else to give more of a well-rounded perspective than necessarily the most common perspective given for that time period or historic event. So colonial towns and townspeople, and taking care of the earth, and presidents and American symbols. So we will continue those next year. But like I said, he really enjoyed the units we did. We have our read aloud, which everything is included. You don't have to buy other books. Everything's already in there. Each unit does give you supplemental books you can use. It gives you online resources. So again, Core Knowledge is a wealth of information. You have your teacher guide, which gives you step-by-step instructions. You also have your teacher resources, so any printouts. He did a lot of sequencing and cutting things out, putting them in the right order, and matching and things like that. So you do have some hands-on activities, and like I said in the teacher guide, it gives you the play acting, so they're acting out the stories they've had. There's also some, what's it called, narration, where they tell back the story. So you have the, I don't use the image cards. Sometimes in there will be prompted to ask a question about a specific thing. I no longer download those. I just go to the story or I talk about it. But you can, and then the flip book is, again, images. So these are things that I pre-download and are ready to go. So I just print out the sheets that go with the unit, and we are good to go. So it does take some prep work, yes. I have to download some things, I have to print some things. It's also completely free and really well-rounded. So I highly suggest Core Knowledge, especially for those early years. It's something I would have, if I knew about it, would have done with my older kids. So on top of that, he did join us for some group subjects as well. And again, at 5, he's just there for the content or to be included. He's not necessarily doing the level of work my 8-year-old or my 12-year-old are, but he really does enjoy being included in things. So for our group subjects this year, we did history, we did art, we did social justice, we did science, and we did philosophy, and then we did have some scattered units throughout the year. For December, we had a European Christmas study, and then the social justice units were different units throughout the year as well. So he did include in history, we did Core Knowledge United States history this year. It's our second year doing United States history, but it's his first time really getting involved in our history. And again, that was mostly just him sitting and listening and participating in the discussion. So for art, he did do our art projects with us. We did the art books, which I'll talk about in family subjects. But he was there doing most of the projects in his own 5-year-old way. He wasn't, really focused on the technique or what we were doing. He just enjoyed playing with art supplies and being included with the family. Same with social justice units. He was there for the books, the documentaries, and the discussion. Science, he really enjoyed the experiments. We did a whole problem-based learning This year with core knowledge, one of the units is all problem-based learning, which I'll talk about in family subjects again, but he had a lot of fun getting out and doing that with us as well. We did science Thursdays and Fridays. Philosophy, again, that's just reading a philosophy book and having discussions. He really enjoyed giving his opinion on different themes in philosophy. So we talked about like friendship and love and different ideas and what the philosophical thoughts behind them were. And it's funny to hear a 5-year-old's opinions on some of those things. But he was included in those things, but in no way was it, academically rigorous or on his level. It was just exposure. So outside of that, he joined us when we met with friends at the park and things like that. He does not choose to do any extracurricular activities at this point. I've asked him numerous times throughout the year. His oldest sister does horseback riding. My middle child, his, I guess, older sister as well, does gymnastics. So one does horse riding, the other one does gymnastics. I've approached him on different options that are available to him, and he's just not comfortable doing that yet. So I'm not going to push it. He's 5. Some kids need longer. Some kids, honestly, just don't want to do extracurricular, which is fine too. I was the kid that would rather be inside reading a book than doing all those other things. But we will see as time goes on if that changes. I'm always giving him opportunities for outside activities if he's interested in doing those. But right now, he was fine just going along with the flow of what we were doing in our homeschool. And what my older kids were doing, he would tag along to those things as well. So that is how our year has gone. And again, it's gone really well. I know going into this year, I was hesitant because he was coming in full-time with us. Last year, he was doing pre-K, and if you've done preschool, it's not a lot. It's pretty quick. It's pretty easy. It's not a lot of in-depth stuff. It's, a lot of play learning, things like that. So going into pre-K or finishing up pre-K and into kindergarten, again, it's a lot of it's not what I would consider teaching anything difficult, or especially now that I'm doing like 6th grade, going back to pre-K and kindergarten is like a breeze. But I was hesitant of how it would affect our schedule because I'm already juggling 2 older kids. I'm juggling a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old, multiple subjects, multiple different areas they're working on. It's a lot. So this year I was concerned on how it would affect our schedule and our natural flow to our homeschool, bringing him in on a more consistent, permanent basis, and it went really well. Again, his level of work doesn't take long, maybe, 25, 30 minutes, a little longer depending on the lessons, but again, I think because I provide such a structured environment, everybody has a calendar. He had a calendar this year that hung up on the wall. His was completely visual, as you can see here. It was in a sheet protector, so he could mark it off with a dry erase marker. And, he was really excited because who doesn't enjoy crossing things off when they're done? I'm a big fan of crossing things off when I'm done, and so is my 5-year-old. But he did really well. It was learning how to juggle 3 different levels, 3 different kids. And I do have a video, which I'll link up above, kind of talking about some tips of how I juggle different age levels, because they do need specific things in different ages, and it's a lot to juggle for one person, and I do really like to provide things in an age level appropriateness for each child. I don't want to just chunk them together to make it easier for myself, although it would be easier for myself. I do think it doesn't have, it's not in the best interest of that specific learning child to have things either too high or too low above them. So I do try to my best ability to make things at their level. But learning just that rhythm and that routine, having a plan, everybody had their schedules, and I do think that I'm naturally a structured, scheduled person, but when I have 3 kids that I have to homeschool and get everyone's stuff done, I gotta have a plan, I gotta have a schedule. Is it the most fun thing in the world to, plan and schedule and all those things? No, but in order for us to progress and all of my kids get through their work on a consistent day-to-day basis, because it really is the day-to-day work that makes your homeschool year, I gotta do those things. So luckily, I planned well. I figured out that he works best if, I'm getting his stuff done in the morning. So he usually works from 8 to 8:45 in that time span, one-on-one with me. Sometimes there's interruptions with my older kids if they need stuff. My other kids will start their independent work at, 8:30 without me, and then they'll have to wait until mom is done with my 5-year-old. And that's just the way it works. He works best, everybody works best if we get his work done. And honestly, his is the easiest of all of those for me. Is it more teacher intensive than probably some of the other things? Yes. But it's also the easiest things I'm teaching. It's, you know, handwriting, it's reading. And like I said, this is my third time around. These concepts are easy for me to teach, and I'm very good at adjusting to meet each individual child at this point. And that just making sure I have that scheduled time for him was all I needed. That chunk of time, and he got so into the routine, it's not a struggle to get him to do work. He really is excited about doing his schoolwork. He sits down, gets his stuff going. And again, this is what happens when you provide a structured environment for your child, that it just naturally becomes habitual part of their routine. And I do think kids really do strive off of routine and consistency. So it was not an issue bringing him into our homeschool full-time this year, and he actually really enjoyed participating in a lot of our different subjects. And it's nice to get into different things with him, because like I said, I have on one end, you know, a 12-year-old, and on the other I have 5-year-old, so I'm getting like the full perspective here of, you know, I'm, you know, nearing the end of, you know, elementary school, getting middle school, and then I'm starting all over again with my 5-year-old. But I can see the end and kind of see the progress. It's a good thing to see. It's you know, it's a large age gap, almost 8 years between my oldest and my youngest, but it does give me some perspective as the educator of kind of where we're going in the future, and to kind of bring me back and remind me of the things we did in the early years as well. So he had a really good year. Our homeschool had a really good year. If you have any specific questions about anything I talked about for my 5-year-old son, for his end of finishing up pre-K and then starting kindergarten year, let me know in the comments down below. If not, thank you for watching.